So, I talk about games a lot. I'm interested in them. Naturally, I've had the urge to make some little games of my own. I've mostly made just little experiments over the years. I've never released anything, besides a couple mods, I guess. Until now, that is. Well, not quite now. I am working on this little game project that I think is kinda cool and I want to show off. It's a 2D deathmatch game with fully destructible levels. Think something like Worms, except this is real time. There are a few other differences as well. I wanted this to be more action and physics based. Because it's real time, you have grenades and weapons that you can use simultaneously. Now, one thing about Worms is that all the geometry in the level is basically the same material and is destroyed in the same way, essentially. It is, however, pixel perfect. That means the entire environment can be destroyed and it's all destroyed uniformly. This doesn't really allow opportunities for environmental related challenges. Noita is another game I kinda looked at. It uses the cellular automata algorithm to create this completely destructible world, and the different materials act in ways that are closer to what I expect. The issue? It seems very complex. It'll be quite a challenge to be able to recreate that stuff at all just in code, let alone make an actual game about it, let alone make that a multiplayer game. And yes, I'm trying to make a multiplayer game here. It kinda has this Halo-like health system with shields over health, and different weapons with different properties such as extra shield damage, like Halo. A bit like Halo. What I think is cool about this is that these properties also include more damage to areas of the environment. Fire is better at destroying wood and so on. Another thing I was inspired by was the designer of Halo, Jamie Griesmer, talking about the satisfaction of perfectly timed grenade chain reactions in Halo. He compared the satisfaction from observation of cause and effect to what you see in cartoons like Looney Tunes. So why not a literal cartoon art style? That is something that I want to continue to lean into more into the future. And you know what? I feel ashamed with the current state of the art because, of course, as we know, the art is always the first thing you finish in the course of developing a game. Currently, the destruction is simplistic. It will scan a circle, deleting each tile of a certain type within that radius. The different types of tiles have different radii. A firebomb, for example, has a large radius for any wood materials. A C4 does a lot of damage to earth. I've also tried to achieve slow, bouncy movement. I want to lean into physics interactions as well. There aren't any really special moves like wall jumping or things like that. The objective is to make a party game, kinda like Worms, a simple casual deathmatch game. Of course, the beauty of this is that I can change plans depending on what I find out during playtesting. I can find out what works and what doesn't, experiment with modes and items. This game also includes networking. Naturally, it's multiplayer and want to do it online. Online networking is super fucked, and after this I have significantly more respect for online programmers than I already did. Realistically, for some of the features I built, I could have produced those features in a single player game in less than an hour. But because online networking adds several layers of complexity, it took exponentially more time to build those features, and I had to do a lot more learning along the way. For example, switching weapons should be a super easy task. There are so many ways you can do it, but I ran into a comical number of bugs in implementing the feature. Now, why is networking so hard? My understanding is that at its basis, networking is about getting two devices remotely to agree on something. There are protocols like TCP used in most websites where the data is received whole in packets, exactly as it was on the server. Then there are protocols like UDP, which is built for constant streams of data, maintaining quality while allowing for some loss. Data is transferred over electronic signals, and electricity takes time to travel. In a perfect world, everything in a game should be happening for every user at the exact same time. But this is not a perfect world. One of the challenges of networking is that there is no perfect solution. A lot of the networking is actually about covering up what's actually happening. They're fooling you. Every choice comes with trade-offs that you must make, and you need to choose what will create the smoothest experience for the end user. What is happening on either player's computer will never line up completely. You have this thing called latency. That's why you get better ping the closer you are geographically to the server. The signal has to travel a shorter distance. Typically, there needs to be some central point that determines the state of the game to ensure all players are fundamentally on the same page. This is important in fighting cheaters as well. There must be a host, which all the clients are connected to, that has authority over the state. The host could be an external dedicated server, or it could be one of the players in the game, like peer-to-peer. Server authoritative is the standard networking model. Now, you could technically manage all data on the server. All variables could be passed through the server and all the game logic could be computed on the server. But this isn't really remotely practical. The more computations you handle on the server, the more delay there is in the game. If every input had to go through the server and be approved, it would drastically slow down the pace of the game. The more data you send over the server at any given time, the more bandwidth you consume, and the slower the operations become. So how do you solve this? It's called client-side prediction. Basically, your own client machine will compute your movement and actions as well as sending it to the host for the actual calculation for player state. The local machine will predict what the values received back from the server should be based on the player input. Of course, these values aren't always in perfect agreement. This is a large contributing factor to what players experience as lag, or desync, a disagreement between where the server says the player should be and where the player's own computer says they should be. There's seriously a lot to it, and this rabbit hole goes significantly deeper. I experimented a lot with how I'd do things. I did try a few different things. Pixel perfect destruction. Rigid bodies that would regenerate the mesh when parts of it were destroyed. One issue I recognized early on would be ensuring the state of the map is identical for all users. It would have to be consistent, because even a slight discrepancy could ruin the experience. I felt that it'd be too difficult to maintain a consistent experience with an extremely complex simulation occurring. I use Unity's tilemap system currently. At a very simple look, it's not entirely unlike Voxels or Noita's cellular automata type thing, in that the map is built out of a grid of discrete points. But in my case, it's considerably simpler. I'm just using an inbuilt Unity system with large sprites laid out across the grid. Tile maps are usually meant for top-down 2D type games, or platformers. I use smart tiles, which change the tiles at runtime so the surfaces are more smooth when destroyed. This system seems to work for me thus far. Performance has been fine. It can handle a ton of objects on screen without major effects on performance. Perhaps in the future I may face challenges with the Unity system and might write my own, but for now it works. I experimented with Unity's inbuilt networking system. I tried that, as well as looking into other available solutions. For now, I'm using Photon Fusion. It's fairly easy to set up and use, at least while I'm prototyping the game. That's not to say it is easy. I don't think any form of networking is easy, per se, even if you do use a framework that does a lot of the work for you. It's just easier compared to the alternatives. It's already built to support certain network topologies. It has inbuilt lag compensation, physics prediction, so on. So it seems like a decent fit to what I'm making here. Again, I will see if this continues to meet my needs into the future as I develop this more. It was basically like a side project that I did while I was working, traveling, finishing university, so on and so forth. When I had a little bit of free time available, I'd chip away at it. For a lot of that time, I did not have free time available. I've honestly learnt a lot already. I've discovered how fun Unity's particle system is to use. I've learnt about the Unity tilemap system and smart tiles, Unity's animation system, programs like Aseprite, so on and so forth. There's still a lot left to go, and that's why I want your support. If this at all interests you, like the video and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. Also, consider supporting me on Patreon. I know this question will come up inevitably. Why did I decide to go with Unity? One is because Unity is very well geared towards what I'm doing with 2D games. It's quite easy to use. I also made the decision to use Unity before that controversial announcement that caused a lot of people to ditch it. They obviously reversed that announcement anyway. But that aside, the version of Unity that I'm using for this project right now is too old to even have those rules apply to it anyway. And I knew when I saw the public backlash that the company would respond by changing the controversial policy somehow. So I didn't give my thoughts on it straight away. Overall, I weighed the options and, I did decide Unity is the best choice, at least for right now. Even the engine I use could be subject to change. Now, why squirrels? I'm currently going with the name Squirrelpocalypse. It's simple. I was describing the premise of the game to a friend. I said it was a little like Worms, but in real time. And he just said, squirrels. Make it about squirrels. It also ties into the whole Looney Tunes cartoon thing. In short, this one is really for the wacky gamers out there. I want this to be a fun party style game. We'll see how this goes. I sincerely appreciate any support or feedback on this. Thanks for watching, and goodbye. I'm glad to be back. I would like to thank my patrons, Mixtab, Will Matty, Lazy the Crazy, Glorious Bees, Delirious Fool, and Top Keck Red. Thank you.